Welcome back to BunkaiGaming, this is Matt. So I wanted to expand a little bit more upon my last video where I talked about the Division and just some of the things that are still a little bit frustrating about the game. So let's cover off materials first. There's a couple different ways that you can collect these materials, either via going to the Dark Zone, farming the enemies there and then extracting them out and then breaking them down into their individual components, whether it be fabrics or weapon parts or electronics, or whatever you need at that point in time to then craft your blueprints. Then you have the story missions, and then you also have the running around the world and killing enemies as well will drop things, which then again can be broken down again. But last but not least, is probably the preferred method for most people is to run around in-game and go to the various locations where these actual items or materials are. And then you can go to the individual chests or whatever it is and collect a material from that and get those materials to bring back to your base to be able to craft with them. Now, but the problem with this method is at this point in time, you could take upwards of at least an hour to 2 hours to run around in-game to each of these locations and to collect those materials. So what ends up happening is you end up playing the game of go collect the material instead of the actual game itself of having a bit of fun and enjoying it. And it becomes this real grind, unfortunately. Now, I understand there's got to be a point of grind and material collecting is in that bucket. But when the game wholly and solely becomes about collecting materials and you do nothing else, then it goes beyond that. So I do have a bit of a solution here that maybe Ubisoft could look at implementing. If we have a look in the base, we have 4 particular chests which break down into weapons, fabric, electronics, and the last one is the tools. So what they could do potentially is have a once a day allocation of each of them come into the base and you be giving that allocation. Instead of you having to run around in world and collecting them, they all come to your base and you have an allocation. If you want to go outside of that allocation, you can go grind story missions or go to the Dark Zone and get more materials that way. But I think this would save a lot of time and effort on the player's part instead of having to go run around the world for a couple of hours to collect these materials. So next up, I'm going to talk about how the PvE players get access to the higher level equipment. Of course, you can run the challenge modes daily and get some kind of reward, hopefully something really nice. But again, that's left up to RNG and luck and what you may get. So still the best method to get what you specifically want is via blueprints. Unfortunately for a PvE player at the moment, getting a blueprint is very extremely difficult because the only method to do that, well, 2 methods really. One is to go to the home base and to pick up the blueprints there, which haven't changed since the start of the game. And the other method is to go into the Dark Zone and to grind through to level 50 at present to then be able to buy them. But the problem is this push from a PvE player's perspective to go into the Dark Zone, and from somebody who enjoys PvE content more than, say, a PvP content in this particular game, me going and grinding in the Dark Zone is not something I really want to do. I mean, I'm sitting at level 44 at the moment, but I don't really feel like grinding up to level 50. Sure, that's going to change when next week's patch come out and a lot of the levels will be changed around and how high you have to be to actually get that equipment, but it is very frustrating to be sort of forced to go down that track to be able to get this extremely high level blueprints only by that method. So they really need to start looking at implementing a better way to give PvE players these blueprints by either cycling them around at the special vendor, and also the advanced weapon vendor also needs to start updating his inventory of high level weapons. I mean, at this point in time we have the same weapons there sitting since the start of the game again. How about he cycles around every week the high level named weapons that he has down there? And this is the crux of the problem, is I feel that Ubisoft is pushing people to say, you have to go into the Dark Zone, you have to grind out the Dark Zone to be able to get this high level equipment. And it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to have an option for the PvP side of things, and then the PvE side also should have a similar option to be able to collect those same blueprints or high-end equipment or weapons. So this has really required them to have a look at how the in-game currency works, because the Phoenix credits basically broke the economy. So you see that a lot of the high-end equipment or high-end items now will be able to purchase with regular in-game currency. Also, the Dark Zone blueprints will now be able to utilize the Dark Zone credits that you get to be able to buy those high-end blueprints. This is a good thing, because the Phoenix credits had really destroyed the economy as such, and all it ended up doing is people were finding ways to farm or exploit the system to be able to get a huge amount of these Phoenix credits. And it's not the way it should have been. They should have tailored it a little bit better to be able to utilize the in-game currencies, because all we've done as players is stockpile these huge amounts of in-game currency, because all we can really use is the Phoenix credits to get what we need. Also, with next week's update, they're changing the way that crafting works, as in the materials and the cost of those materials to go up to different tiers. So to give you an example, at present to go from say green to a blue level material, it costs you 5 green to go to 1 blue, and then so forth, 5 blue to go to 1 gold. And while this is a good thing, they may end up creating this economy drought as such, because people won't be able to get enough materials, because now it's going to cost 10 standard green to go to 1 blue, 15 blue to go to 1 gold. So are people going to be able to get enough materials to be able to craft blueprints and such? Now they're saying they're going to change the amount of drops for, say, high level gold equipment to be able to make up for this shortfall. I'm hoping it's going to be enough, because if it isn't, it's going to really frustrate players knowing that we get slowed down dramatically being able to craft these blueprints, because we don't have enough gold level material to be able to craft them. And I understand they're trying to slow players' progress down to a point where they can enjoy the game and be able to slowly grind up. But we're finding more often than not is that the higher level players that have been able to exploit the game and be able to get a great deal of these materials won't be affected by this. It'll only be the lower level players, or the players that don't play as much, that will be greatly affected by these changes. And something for Ubisoft to consider is, while the game is supposed to be very team-based orientated, they have to remember that there is players out there that do play solo a lot of the time. Either we don't have the time to join up with others, or it's just the hours that we play is not necessarily advantageous to be able to work with others. Now we have the matchmaking to allow us to work together, but they have to consider that there has to be ways for solo players to be able to gain access to this high level equipment or weapons or materials. So you have to give them some options and give them the ability to be able to collect this as part of the game. So I'm really looking forward to the Incursion update next week and the changes that are going to be made, and see how it affects the game as a whole. So let me know your comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video, and I will talk to you in the next one. Thank you, bye.